I'm going to do a sketch today of a house, my grandmother's house in Wyoming. And I'm starting with a travel sketchbook, a Pentalic sketchbook. I'm putting tape on. I'm going to put the tape on my Levi's first, just so it will have a little bit of fiber on it and might not tear my paper. When I take the tape off, I have to be careful to tear away, to go away from the painting so that I don't actually tear part of the painting. I use Scotch Magic tape when I work with Arches paper, but this paper is softer. And so Arches or a Scotch Magic tape might tear the paper a little more.
Being a softer paper, does it receive the paint pretty much the same as Arches, or is there a difference that you notice?
I think there's a difference. I noticed that I don't get quite as much texture on this paper as I do on Arches. It could be that it's also a little bit smoother. Let's see. Boy, there's kind of a shadow on my paper, but I guess I'll just deal with that. Okay, so let me get some brushes out. I'll show you the brushes I plan to use. Okay, now this is a huge brush for this small pad of paper, but it's my number 24. And I love that brush for washes. This is my number 8 Princeton Long Round Velvet Touch brush. Let's see, this is a rigger. It's kind of bent right now. Or sometimes they're called a script brush. It's a rigger. It's what they use, if you're doing a watercolor of a boat and the rigging. This is my scrubber brush. See, it's kind of stiff and it has an angle. And on this end, it has a angle, a 45-degree angle. So I can scrape back into my paint to make things, make white lines or dark lines. And I have some flat brushes too. I don't use flat brushes very much, but here's a smaller flat one I might want to use since I have some negative space painting to do, architectural features. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, what Ian Fennelly does first is he actually figures out by looking at his reference photo first the angles. Now, this isn't as necessary if you're going to do sort of a wonky sketch like I want to, but just looking at this, I can see that the angle of the roof up here goes this way. Yeah, it's harder with this one because there's a corner. So I'm looking here, there's a horizon, like a area that's kind of flat, and then this part goes up like that. So it kind of sets it in your head a little bit. There's an angle of the sidewalk going this way. Some of the angles that you want to have in your painting. I'm gonna see if I can move this over slightly. Just a second. I want you to be able to see the actual paper better. There, okay. So the first thing that I could do would be to do a little pencil sketch. Maybe I'll just very loosely do one of a basic shape. So there's a round curved shape. Keep in mind that these are ellipses, and above the horizon line, they're going to all go go one direction, and then below they're going to go the other way. So down here is going to curve this way, up here it's going to curve this way.
And you're deliberately holding the pencil far back, like you were talking about.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. So I'm just establishing some of the basic shapes here. Boy, as I'm sketching this, I'm remembering which was my room and things like that. You know, it's not too soon to start thinking about Christmas presents. You might want to do a little sketch of something for someone that you know that would enjoy it. Something, let's see, I've got to put the window in the right place. I'm beginning to get too careful. Okay, I'm going to stop drawing now and just start painting. So I'm using, this happens to be Mission Gold pigments, which are a little bit brighter, I think. Let me see if I have a yellow ochre in here. Oh, no, I'm not going to use this palette. I have to get one that has more colors. This is the one that I used yesterday or Monday in the class. And I do have to clean it off because I'm not like Tom Henderson. I can't paint on a dirty palette. Okay, so I'm going to start with the sky, obviously, and I'll start with cobalt blue. And what I do when I paint is I try to put my blues and greens and colors more on the cool range on one side of my mixing part, and my yellows and oranges and reds on the other part. So I'm going to just come in and I want to make it more of an interesting sky. So I like to have a little bit of an angle also. So I'm going to tip my paper up slightly. I'm painting around the shapes. And then there's a big tree back there. As you, as the sky gets closer to the horizon, it becomes a little green. So I'll put a little bit of viridian in the sky. Let's see, wait, where's the viridian? Viridian's a little bit of a blue green, so over on this side, I'm adding some Viridian. Let's see here. I'm going to put in the tree behind the house now, and I think I'll start with some sap green, but then I'll add some ultramarine to it.
So is your paper like at a 45-degree angle?
No, probably 20.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it looks more severe than that, but you're letting gravity assist you.
Yes. Now I'm going to vary the color a little bit by putting some ultramarine blue in to it for this tree over here. So you see I'm painting around the shape of the house. Okay, now I'll take my smaller brush. I'm going to take my flat brush now. Yeah, just knocked over a glass of water. All right. So now I'm looking at some of the shapes that I want to work with. And I think one thing I want to do is indicate the columns in the front, because that's kind of a focal point. So I'm going to mix up a gray with ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Kind of a blue-gray. Oops, there's some water that flowed down. If it doesn't quite work out, it's okay, because I can come back in later with some wash. So I'm just putting in windows and the places where the columns are. I'm going to try to lift a little bit here. But maybe I'll wait until it's a little more dry. And now I'll do the buff color of the brick. Have yellow ochre with just a little bit of the blue mixture in it. And then when my grandmother had the house, it was yellow. So I'm going to make it yellow. I painted my house in Seattle, Victorian house, the same color my grandmother's house was. Oh, I forgot the windows on this part. Okay. Oh, it's almost time to quit, and I'm barely started. So I better knock in some darks. For the roof color. Yeah, it's kind of a brown tone, so. I'm thinking of it as being sort of a continuous shape. Thinking of it as being sort of a continuous shape. Putting a little bit of a darker tone on one side. My cat has an uncanny way of knowing when it's time for her to eat. She's letting me know. Okay, so with the time that I have left, I just need to do, I wanted to do some line work, so maybe I'll go ahead and start some of that even before I have to wait until some of it's a little bit dry, but I want to do some of the shadow shapes too. I won't put the front yard in, but I've got to put in a few bushes. Okay, so let me see if I can get some ink on here. I'll have to stay away from the wet part unless I can dry it first. Okay, so I'm going to start with my long stick because I want to do a loose sketch. So this is my really long stick. And I'm going to dip it in my ink. See if you can see my ink here. It's just a bottle of acrylic ink. Because it might end up being kind of a thick line, I'm going to start in the foreground where you could have thicker lines. Whoops, I need to see my image again. So I'm going to take a line for a walk now. So, whoops, it broke. Just a sec. All right, so I started in a place where it wouldn't matter that much. And now I'm going to just, some chimneys. When you work with a stick, you get a hard line and a soft line because it dries out. very rough. So, I have a tendency, I think I might want to come back in with another thinner tool. So I'll do that now. So that was with the stick.
That's fun though.
And now I'm going to look for a micro pen. This is a brush pen. That might make too thick a line, so. Here's one that's a 0.1. And now I'll look at some things like this where I want to show a little bit of a detail here. Well, I didn't put windows in here. There's a flag here. There's an awning. I remember the awnings were there when my grandmother was there. And it feels very empty in the foreground, so I'll just put some flowers in. And these windows need a little detail. Okay, so the last thing I'll do, because it needs a little more sparkle, is do a little bit of spatter. Yeah, and I think I'll do a little spatter with some white gouache. And a little bit of yellow ochre. Oops, need more water on my brush. When you don't have a lot of time and you want to add something, spatter's an excellent way to do that. Okay, I'm going to call that enough for now. Let me turn this off.